Hey everyone, my name is Louis and this video is part of our series on a complete guide to creating a brand identity, which I've divided into 4 easy and actionable steps, namely how to define your brand, how to design your brand, how to deliver your brand, and how to create your digital brand. And today's video, we'll just be looking at an introduction to branding, what it is, how it works, why is it important, and then we'll touch on a few things that you can expect in the rest of the series coming up. So without further ado, let's get branding. And for those of you new to the channel, this is the Ultimate Brand Bible, your ultimate space for free advice, tips, tricks, hacks, how-to guides, templates, and resources on branding to help you get your brand to the next level. And you can start that process for your brand today by hitting the subscribe button, and don't forget the little bell notification to make sure you don't miss any of the great stuff that we'll be putting out on a regular basis just for you. So, let's get to the introduction of the complete guide to creating a brand identity. Now, first things first, there we go. What is a brand identity? So, first of all, we'll start off with a quote from Jeff Bezos. Branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Just something interesting to remember. So a brand identity is a set of elements that all work together to convey a brand's core values and mission to the market, primarily through its visual identity, which includes things like logo, colors, typography, tagline, imagery, etc. But that is not it. There's more. Brand identity is also perception. Your brand is the reputation and perception that others have of you when you're not around, like Jeff Bezos said in his quote. Now, what customers are saying about your brand behind the scenes is an extremely powerful force that impacts your brand in a positive or negative way, depending on your reputation, of course. Brand identity is also emotions. Brand identity not only consists of visual and physical elements, but also have the ability to invoke powerful emotions in your customers. I've used this example before of these crazy scenes outside the Apple stores. Brand identity is also emotions. Brand identity not only consists of visual and physical elements, but also have the ability to invoke powerful emotions in your customers. I've used this example before of these crazy scenes outside the Apple stores before the iPhone or new products get launched, where people literally camp in the streets, in anticipation of these products, and it's very powerful emotions that gets elicited in these people, and it's great. Just shows you the power of the brand identity. And then lastly, for this, brand identity is also impression. Brand identity creates a long-lasting impression on customers and should always be controlled and steered to be in line with the overall vision and strategy of the brand. Because the truth is, whether you invest in your company's brand identity or not, your customers will perceive your brand in a certain way. They will experience certain emotions when they interact with your brand, and they will have an impression of your brand and what it represents. So it's very important to at least try and control that narrative to a certain extent when it comes to your brand as much as possible, to create the brand identity that you want to put out there, to show your customers, this is who we are, and also to get your customers to experience your brand the way you want them to. Now move on. Why is brand identity important? So, firstly, it creates brand recognition. Now this is something that should be quite obvious, but your branding creates brand recognition. Your logo, other visual elements are what customers interact with, and is essentially the face of your company, if you can call it that. Now just think of Apple or Coca-Cola, how instantly recognizable their visual identities are. It also creates brand trust. Branding can create trust in a brand when customers are considering engaging with your brand for the first time. Professional, coherent, well-designed brand identity will reflect your brand to potential customers in exactly the same way as professional, coherent, well-organized. Similarly, if you have a fun brand identity, it will represent your brand to them as being fun. So it's important to remember that. But then the flip side is also true. Once your branding is not done well, it will reflect poorly on your customers. Now, all these customers' experiences will create a brand reputation over time, and your visual identity will then become the symbol of that reputation. Once again, if you think of Apple as an example, so over the years, the Apple brand has become synonymous with innovation and extremely high quality, and their logo has become the symbol of that. Now, I use this example a lot, but I still think it's pretty valid. If Apple decides to manufacture washing machines tomorrow, they're gonna go into the washing machine industry. They will probably do very well, and they will as soon as they launch these washing machines, they will have a stream of people probably camping outside their their stores to get the latest Apple washing machine. And whether they have experience in washing machines or not, they have that kind of trust in their customers. The customers will trust that Apple did all the R&D they needed to, and they produced probably the best washing machine on the market. So which also then leads to brand loyalty, which is the next one. Now, once again, if you think of Apple and you compare them with Samsung, you can imagine entire families have been disrupted because of arguments over, similar to sport arguments, who produces the best smartphone. Some people are just Apple and never Samsung, and some people are Samsung and never Apple. And there's, a legitimate argument going on, over this. And people have these passions, and it's because of the brand loyalty. And it's it's a very powerful thing to have as a brand. And another reason why brand identity is important is it supports brand communication. So another important thing that every brand needs in one way or another is advertising. This is where brand communication comes in. How do you want to communicate with your potential customers to persuade them in order to engage with your brand? So your branding represents who you are as a brand and will determine how you communicate with your customers. Having great cohesive branding will help you to create effective designs and messages to communicate with. And I think the main thing here to remember is consistency. And we'll get to that a lot on this channel. And it's just important to keep things simple and consistent. Those will probably be my two golden rules for marketing and branding. Keep it simple and be consistent. Obviously, be good as well, but even if it's not that great, as long as you're consistent and you keep it simple and people can understand you, you should be well on the way. Nonetheless, last one on this list we have here, it inspires your employees. Now, by getting your branding right, you can leverage that to create strong and effective internal culture within your organization, which is also another reflection of who you are as a brand. So your employees are a great opportunity to become your greatest marketers through passionate advocacy of your brand. Now, I've seen this power, the power of this time and time again, but then I've also seen the opposite of it, which could end up hurting your brand. So, like I said before, inspire your employees and they will inspire each other and your customers alike. But it all starts by giving them something powerful to believe in. So build a brand for them to believe in. Now, let's look at what makes a brand identity. And this is what we'll be covering in this series in the upcoming videos. So there's various elements that make up a brand's identity, and this includes the brand name, the brand personality, emotions, voice, differentiators, brand positioning, which I have a video on, and I'll let it pop up here because I think it's worth checking out. How to write your own brand positioning statement, although we'll briefly cover it in this series as well. But for a more in-depth look, you can have a look at that. The mission statement, tagline, company slogan, and then your brand architecture, and also collaterals, which include stationery and staff uniforms and all kinds of other things that your identity will appear on. Now, probably the main part of your brand identity, which is then the representation of those elements, like your name, personality, your vision, your mission, all of those things will be represented through a visual identity. Now, your visual identity is one of the most important components of your overall brand identity because it's the visual representation of your brand. And one thing and the one thing that'll be seen by everyone in the marketplace. So this includes your logo, your colors, typography, shape, icon, logo I've mentioned already, design element, which is like a secondary brand mark, which if you do it well could become, as distinctive as your logo itself. And then lastly on here, imagery style. Now, as I said, when it comes to branding, the key lies in the word cohesive, or at least consistent. Therefore, it's critical to make sure your brand's visual identity matches all of the other elements of your overall identity, which you will define in the first step. You will design it in the second step, which deals with this, your visual identity. And then in the third step, we'll deal with delivering your brand. And that's, putting your identity out into the market on all of the various collaterals. And then in the last step, we'll put all of this together and create your digital brand. And that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it and looking forward to the series. Be sure to like this video and subscribe and hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when we release the rest of these. And if you're watching this after the fact, then you can just head over to the playlist and it should be there, how to create a brand identity. Till next time.